Oh man, I'm cold. Hey folks, Happy New Year. It's a few days into January of 2020. I'm at the crag. It's the middle of the night. It's raining and actually that's been the story of my climbing for the past couple of weeks over the Christmas period. I've been coming out to this project at a kind of new boulder spot that some friends showed me, and I've been trying the line behind me, which is going to be a really hard piece of climbing. I've just succeeded in doing one of the two crux moves and I still haven't done the others. And I thought in this episode it might be nice to talk about a few different ways, actually 5 ways that you can send your project. I've always really enjoyed projecting routes, and for me actually one of the most interesting parts of climbing in general is picking something that when you first try it you just think, nope, I can't climb that. And that's how I've actually felt about that overhanging wall there for the past 3 or 4 sessions that I've been trying it. Just completely unable to make any impact on the last crux move. But after a few sessions I'm starting to see that maybe there could be an inroad. I still don't know if I can climb this project, and that's what I like about it. That's actually what I want, because I've always found that the process of turning something that feels impossible into something that in the end is possible, and sometimes in the end can be easy when you finally do them. That's an immensely rewarding part of climbing. So given that we're just entering a new year and a new decade, I thought many of you will probably have your own projects that you're thinking about for the coming year or the coming few years. So I'm going to narrow this discussion to thinking about one particular project, rather than thinking about a broader goal such as I want to climb my first 9A, for example. How to actually get from that position where you've seen something you want to do and you definitely can't do it, you're not even close, and you want to get to the finish line. So here are 5 things, and the first one is by far the most important in my opinion, and really I think it forms the foundation for all the others. And in a sense, if you just focused on the first one, then I think to an extent the rest tend to fall into place by themselves. You don't necessarily need to plan, strategize in a deliberate way, so to speak. Often these decisions that you have to make to lead you to the end of the project tend to just happen by themselves. They unfold as you go along. So that first thing that you can do to make sure you send your project is to identify with it. The concept of identifying something, I suppose, is a little bit of a nuanced, complicated subject. I'm sure you could interpret it in a few different ways. At a basic level, I think it's the feeling that you must do this project, that you've got the bit between your teeth and you really cannot move on with your life until the project is completed. That's not to say that you have to do nothing else. Often I've personally had projects where you go away from them, you come back to them, you go away from them sometimes for years, and then eventually come back to them. They're sort of set in the background while you are stumped for what the next stage is to do, how you can actually get good enough to actually do the project. But then you've never given up on them. It still matters to you that you ultimately do that project. And that's not to say that you must do it. There's this sort of paradox inherent in projecting, where an essential part of the project is that it's hard enough that you might not do it, but at the same time you have to identify with the real desire to not let it go, to not take no for an answer, and to finish the job no matter how long it takes. So maybe a good way to define it is to think, well, what does not identifying with it mean? Like for instance, this project here, if I feel that, well, it's a nice piece of rock, it's nice moves, I would quite like to climb it, but if I'm not good enough, there's other projects. That's kind of, I'm not really committed. It doesn't really matter to me whether I climb this piece of rock or some other piece of rock. But in my mind, over the past 2 or 3 sessions of trying this, even though I can't even do all the moves and still don't know if I can do it at all, I've gradually shifted from that mindset that I've just described to a mindset where I have to answer the curiosity. It's the bug is there, and whether I can do it or not, I have to figure out if the moves are possible for someone. So I think identifying with a project can be a very deliberate thing, where you just say to yourself, I've got to do this. This is really important to me to do it, and I can't move on until I have. But often it can just happen by itself, where you just get gradually drawn in. And really what it does, how it works, is it gives you motivation almost for free. You don't have to make yourself try to come out on a raining night with your lights in the cold and keep trying this thing when you can't even do the moves. You just feel, well, I just have to. But you don't even have to force yourself to, you just so want to answer the curiosity. The second factor is to remove the hurdles. Now, the hurdles that stand between you and climbing your project can be all sorts of things. One really basic one is just having the time to actually try it and the availability. So, for instance, on this project right now, one of the problems is it's January. It's either dark or getting dark in Scotland the whole time. So I've come with my lights and I'm just trying it at night. And that's something that maybe people that are not familiar with bouldering, don't do a lot of bouldering, they might think is kind of unusual, but once you get around the idea of it, then it's totally normal and it allows you to climb anytime you like. So I've kind of been waiting for the rain to stop. There's a window of a few hours, and I've come and the project is almost dry enough to try, but it's still raining, so I'm just standing here waiting until the rain goes off and then I'll try it. Be other things like, do you have partners to climb with, and actually having a concerted effort to organise both your window in a season to try a project and also thinking well in advance about who you might climb with. I mean, one thing I've done in the past is actually do other new routes at crags I've been developing, like bolt lots of other routes, in order that it's more likely that I will have some partners to climb with, because there's not just one 8C there, there's also this nice 8A, and maybe it'd be more likely that you'll be able to encourage people to come and climb with you. So there are 1,001 ways to remove the hurdles that stand between you and getting the time and effort on your project, but try to find them and try to eliminate them. The third thing is to never stop refining the sequence. This is so crucial, and in observing other climbers who are less experienced, or often climbers who don't have a lot of experience climbing outdoors on the rock, I can see that this is often a limitation for people. The rock is very forgiving of being weak if you spend enough time and effort refining the sequence. I am not a strong climber in comparison to the grades that I'm trying to climb, and I almost never do some of the classic boulder problems I've done around the world or sport routes with the standard method for the crux. I almost always have to find my own way because I'm considerably weaker than the other climbers who've done the climb. And one thing with projecting is that just because you find a way to do the move doesn't mean that that's the best way to do the move on the whole link. Sometimes a way that feels quite solid or reliable when you're just doing that one move by itself can actually not be the best way when you're linking it from the ground, because let's say a hold is very fiddly to take. Once you get it right, then it feels good and it's the easier way to do the move. But trying to get that hold when you're a little bit pumped might just be a bit too hard on the link, and it might actually be more straightforward to do a slightly harder way that's a bit more basic, and that ends up being more high percentage when you're actually on the link. And that's something that you only discover once you're actually getting to the stage of linking. So just because you have a sequence for a move or a section of moves, I don't think it's a great idea to set that in stone in your mind and never be willing to change it or update it. I think right up until the very final stage where you actually send your project, it's good to be willing to tweak it. I would also say that it's really important to make sure you have the best possible sequence for the easiest bits of the climb as well as the hard bits. If you're an experienced red pointer, this will just be obvious to you, because I'm sure, like me, you will have failed on some ridiculously easy terrain when you're really pumped and tired and maybe a little bit nervous close to the end of a route. It really matters that you can do the easier parts of the route, whether that's the start or the end, as efficiently as possible to save your energy for the crux, and that can just make such a huge difference. That really makes the difference between sending or not sending. The fourth thing is kind of obvious, which is to train and peak appropriately. I have kind of noticed that there's a tendency recently to say that conditions in climbing are not really important, but that's not really true. Conditions are really significant, and actually if you have quite sweaty hands as I do, they can just make a huge difference to the level of climbing you can do. So I think it is important to make sure that you're in shape at the right moment to actually do the climb. And so a little bit of planning. It doesn't need to be a whole training plan planned down to parts of sub-parts of sessions. It can even just be a very rough plan, but some sort of structure that leads up to the period when your climb is most likely to be in condition is quite a good idea and will increase your chances. And one core principle in training is that you can only peak on top of the base that you've already built. So you should keep this in mind when you're thinking about preparing to do your climb. If, like this project for me, it's so hard and it's probably going to take a bit of training, I think it's unlikely that I'm going to do this climb during this winter. It's probably more likely that I will work out a good sequence but then fail on it by the end of the season, and then have the summer season to think about training and preparing to come back next autumn to try it. If that's the case for you, you have a good few months or even a year or even more than a year to get to the level of your project. You can start to think from the ground up, like what's the base level of basic power and general conditioning, building on top of that the specific elements of strength and fitness that you need for your specific project. The key thing on this particular project I'm trying right now is that you need to be strong on big moves, because the crux moves are 2 really long moves in a row, and also that you have to be strong locking into a small undercut. And I've never been that, not bad on undercuts, but I'm not that strong either, so a little bit of specific training on undercuts might be the sort of final stage that I would need to prepare for this project. So I've already built a model of the crux of it on my board that really emphasises that pulling in and locking on a small undercut to get that wrist and bicep strength to lock a crimpy undercut. So the last factor I would say is to line up against the right psychological target, and by that I mean focusing your efforts on factors that you can actually control, and actually sending the project, actually completing the climb, the successful red point, is only partially under your control. But things that are always under your control are your training, preparation, activities you do, working the sequence, all of those things. Level of effort is absolutely key, and kind of engaging battle mode. So as you move through the stages of preparation, from thinking about basic training and conditioning to working the sequence, ironing out all the little problems in the sequence, figuring it out, not being intimidated when you can't do the move on session 3 or session 4 or session 10, still thinking, well, I can't see it, but there still may be a way. So many times in my own personal climbing history, I've not been able to see the way to do a move, and then I come back with fresh eyes the next day, the next week, or the next season, and I go, oh, why didn't I think of using that foothold? And I can just do the move straight away. Or someone else shows you, that someone else has an idea where you go, I didn't think of that, and they just show you a way, and it unlocks it, and you can just move forward. So as you move through the stages, you're thinking about things like that: basic strength, the sequence, refining the sequence, and then ultimately, as you get closer and closer to red pointing and trying to actually close the deal, then it's more about really finding your best battle mode and getting the most effort out of yourself. If you focus on those things, that will help to distract you from the actual result of sending or not sending the climb on any particular day. What that does is it opens the door for you to be relaxed, even though the outcome of any one try really matters to you. You know you're really close, you could do it any try. It's very tempting to let that pressure get to you. And if you start to focus your mind on this could be the try, and like, oh, I blew it on, this is my last try of the day, and I made a little mistake and I fell off, and so I blew that chance, and so maybe I've blown it for the week, maybe I've blown it for the season, maybe I've blown it forever. Those sorts of thoughts rarely help the situation. In most cases, not for everyone, they make you more nervous and can impede your performance. I think for the bulk of people, they do well to focus on the things they can control, and for me, that's just leaving nothing on the table, like delivering 100% of my physical and mental concentration effort on any given try. And so usually when I start up on a red point, it doesn't matter what kind of climb it is, I just think this is just a try. It's still going to be here tomorrow, and I'll try again. And if I never succeed on this climb, well, that's because it's a hard climb. And really it's quite simplistic like that, and I find that works very well. I've kind of ingrained that as a thought process, and it's worked for me in a very reliable way. I find that as long as I keep my mind oriented on those things, on level of effort, and application, concentration, problem solving, then the rest tends to fall into place. And as a result, the challenging aspects of doing red points, the tense efforts where it's the last try of the day, you know you could do it this try, they end up being a little bit less stressful and a lot more enjoyable, which is ultimately what you want. But I hope those 5 aspects are useful to you, and good luck, and don't give up on your projects, because it's amazing what you can climb that you just thought it was way above you. So go for it and good luck. I'm going to get my towel and see if I can dry off some of these holds at the top of this and get back to trying that move I can do. I'll see you in the next video. Okay. Soaking wet. Damn it.